whispers in the ancient wood. The distant drone of the helicopter faded as Finn Abernathy checked his GPS again. The research station should have been just 2 miles east, but the dense canopy of the Carpathian forest had clearly disrupted his navigation. 3 days into what should have been a routine botanical survey, and he was hopelessly lost. Perfect, he muttered, adjusting his backpack. The late afternoon sun filtered through ancient oaks, casting long shadows across the forest floor. His university would be furious if he failed to collect samples from this remote ecological hotspot. At 32, with his funding already on thin ice, Finn couldn't afford another setback. He pushed through a curtain of vines and froze. Before him, the forest opened into a valley unlike anything he'd seen in scientific journals. Massive trees with silver-blue leaves formed natural archways, and flowers with impossible geometries bloomed in spiraling patterns. The air carried a sweet, unfamiliar scent that made his head swim pleasantly. "This can't be right," Finn whispered, fumbling for his camera. As he raised it, a soft whistling sound was his only warning before something struck his neck. His fingers found a small dart as his vision began to blur. When consciousness returned, Finn found himself lying on a bed of soft moss inside what appeared to be a dwelling formed from a living tree. The ceiling arched 15 feet above, walls, curving organically, adorned with intricate wood carvings and luminescent fungi. "He's awake," a melodic voice announced. Finn turned to see a woman ducking through the doorway. His breath caught. She stood at least 7 feet tall, with long limbs that moved with startling grace. Her amber skin seemed to glow with health, and her eyes were an impossible shade of violet. "Where am I?" Finn attempted to sit up, but his muscles refused to cooperate fully. "You are in Inara territory," she replied, her accent lilting but perfectly understandable. "I am Thalia, guardian of the western boundary." 2 more women entered, equally tall and striking, carrying wooden vessels. One had hair like burnished copper. The other wore elaborate braids adorned with small crystals. Both regarded him with curious intensity. "The paralytic will wear off soon," Thalia continued. "You should not have been able to find our valley. The mist barriers have stood for centuries." "I didn't mean to trespass," Finn explained. "I'm a biologist, studying plant diversity. I got lost." The women exchanged glances. "Outsiders are not permitted here," said the copper-haired woman. "The council must decide your fate." As feeling returned to his limbs, Finn was escorted outside. The village revealed itself as a marvel of natural architecture, homes grown rather than built, seamlessly, integrated with the forest. Women of similar stature moved about, all possessing the same otherworldly beauty and strength. Some carried tools fashioned from materials he couldn't identify. Others tended to gardens with plants unlike any in his botanical catalogs. "How is this possible?" Finn whispered. "An isolated human population with consistent physiological differences should be documented. We are not what you would call human. Not entirely," Thalia responded. "The Inara have lived apart for reasons beyond your understanding." They approached a massive tree at the center of the village, its trunk carved into a spiraling staircase. At its crown, a council of 7 women awaited, each adorned with symbols of authority. From among them rose the eldest, her silver hair cascading past her waist. Despite her apparent age, she stood straight and powerful. "I am Orinea, first guardian of the Inara," she announced, voice resonating through the canopy. "You have entered our sanctuary unbidden, Finn Abernathy." Finn startled. "How do you know my name?" "We know much about the world beyond our valley, though we choose to remain apart from it," Orinea replied. "Now you face our judgment. Stay and become one with the Inara through the ritual of binding. Leave with your memories of us erased, or meet the fate of those who threaten our existence." A younger council member leaned forward. "He is a scientist. He cannot be trusted." "Yet he carries the old bloodline," countered another, pointing to a birthmark on Finn's wrist. "The forest guided him here." Finn looked down at the crescent-shaped mark he'd had since birth. "What does that have to do with anything?" Orinea silenced them with a gesture. "You have until the next full moon to decide your path. Until then, you will learn our ways under Nessa's guidance. A woman stepped forward from the gathering crowd. Unlike the others, her eyes held compassion rather than suspicion. Come, she said, extending a hand that dwarfed his own. You have much to learn about the Inera before you can make such a choice. As Finn followed her away from the council tree, he couldn't shake the feeling that his accidental discovery was perhaps not so accidental after all. The Trial of Stones. The morning mist clung to the valley floor as Nessa led Finn along a winding path bordered by luminescent fungi. 7 days had passed since his capture, and each dawn brought new wonders that challenged everything he understood about evolutionary biology. The council remains divided about you, Nessa explained, her long strides forcing Finn to walk briskly beside her. At 6 feet tall, he had never felt small before arriving among the Inera. Orania believes you might be important to our future, but others fear what your presence means. I still don't understand what my birthmark has to do with anything, Finn replied, touching the crescent on his wrist. The mark had grown more pronounced since his arrival, now shimmering faintly in the dim light. Nessa's expression softened. Long ago, certain humans carried markers of compatibility with our essence. These were our allies, sometimes our kin. Your mark suggests your ancestors once had deep connections to the Inara. They reached a clearing where stone monoliths formed a perfect circle. In the center stood Thalia and 3 other Inara women, each holding what appeared to be weapons crafted from crystal and wood. What's happening? Finn asked, suddenly apprehensive. The Trial of Stones, Nessa answered. Every potential member of our tribe must prove their worth through challenges. The test body, mind, and spirit. Thalia approached, her violet eyes assessing him coolly. You claim to be a scholar of plants, yet you know nothing of their true nature. Today you begin to learn. The first challenge seemed simple enough. Identify the properties of various plants brought before him. Finn's academic knowledge proved largely useless. These species defied conventional taxonomy. Yet when he touched each specimen, strange impressions flooded his mind. Sensations of heat, cold, healing, protection. He has the touch, whispered one of the observers. Just as Orania predicted. The physical trials that followed pushed Finn beyond exhaustion. The Inara moved with preternatural speed and strength, yet expected him to navigate obstacle courses designed for their abilities. By midday, his body was bruised and aching, but a strange energy had begun to build within him, something responsive to the valley itself. During a brief respite, Finn collapsed beside a bubbling spring. I can't keep this up, he gasped. They're testing me against standards no ordinary human could meet. Perhaps you are not as ordinary as you believe, Nessa replied, kneeling beside him. She dipped her fingers in the spring and traced cool water along his forehead. Immediately his fatigue diminished. The valley is already changing you, can you not feel it? Before he could answer, a commotion erupted from the village. A young Inara woman, Finn had learned her name was Vessa, burst into the clearing. Border. Breach, she called out. Eastern Quadrant. Thalia immediately organized a response team, and to Finn's surprise, she pointed at him. You will come. Let us see how you respond to a true threat. Racing through the forest, the Inara moved like shadows between trees. Finn struggled to keep pace until Nessa pressed something into his palm, a small amber stone that pulsed with inner light. Instantly, his movements became more fluid, his senses sharper. They arrived at a ravine where 2 men in tactical gear were collecting plant samples, their backpacks bearing the logo of Nexalon Pharmaceuticals. Finn recognized the corporation's aggressive bioprospecting program. He had declined their job offers twice. Those men work for a company that exploits indigenous plants for profit, Finn whispered. They've been trying to penetrate this region for years. They cannot be allowed to discover our sanctuary, Thalia declared, readying what looked like a blowpipe. Wait, Finn interjected. Let me speak to them first. Violence should be the last resort. Thalia hesitated, then nodded curtly. Proceed, but know that if you betray us, neither your birthmark nor Orania's favor will save you. Finn approached the researchers, fabricating a story about being part of a government conservation team with exclusive rights to the area. He presented falsified documents on his phone, thankfully still functional, and warned them about territorial disputes making the region unsafe. Nexelon doesn't have permits here, he asserted confidently. Your samples will be confiscated if authorities find you. The men exchanged glances. We were told this area was unclaimed, one argued. Your information is outdated, Finn replied. I can escort you to the extraction point 3 miles north. That's your safest exit. After tense negotiation, the men agreed to leave. As they departed, Finn noticed Thalia and several others positioned to ensure the intruders followed his directions. Returning to the village, Finn found himself the center of attention. The Inara Council had assembled to hear Thalia's report of the incident. He used knowledge of the outsiders to protect our borders, Thalia acknowledged reluctantly. No blood was shed, Orania nodded approvingly. The old ways teach us that wisdom often prevails where force cannot. You have passed today's trial, Finn Abernathy. That evening, as Finn sat beside the communal fire, Nessa joined him with a bowl of fragrant stew. You risked much today. The council recognizes your choice. I didn't do it to pass their test, Finn admitted. Those men are just doing their jobs. They don't deserve to die for corporate greed. Compassion for those who would unknowingly harm us, Nessa mused. Such thinking has become rare among the Inara. She hesitated, then added softly, some of us question whether our isolation has become too absolute. Perhaps your arrival signals time for change. From across the fire, Finn noticed several Inara watching their conversation, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. One woman in particular, Idra, the council's youngest member, observed with undisguised suspicion. Not everyone shares Orania's view of me, Finn noted. The binding ritual has not been offered to an outsider in 7 generations, Nessa explained. Some fear what it might mean for our future. Others fear what happens if you refuse. As moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting dappled shadows across the gathering, Finn realized the complexity of his situation extended far beyond personal choice. Whatever decision he made would ripple through this hidden society in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. Tomorrow, Nessa said, rising to her feet, you will learn the true secret of our existence. Rest well, for that knowledge cannot be unlearned. As she walked away, Finn noticed his birthmark was now glowing visibly in the darkness, pulsing in rhythm with the strange heartbeat of the valley itself. Secrets of the sacred spring dawn broke with unusual clarity, the morning mist absent for the first time since Finn's arrival. He awoke to find Nessa waiting outside his dwelling, her expression solemn. Today you walk between worlds, she told him, offering a goblet carved from opalescent wood. The liquid inside shimmered like liquid moonlight. Drink. Your unaltered senses cannot perceive what you must see. Finn hesitated only briefly before drinking. The fluid tasted of wintergreen and something undefinable, ancient and alive. Within moments his vision shifted. The trees around him now pulsed with visible energy, filaments of light connecting everything in the valley. What's happening? He asked, watching luminous networks spread beneath the soil like neural pathways. You're seeing the confluence, Nessa explained, leading him toward the heart of the forest. What your science might call a symbiotic network, but far more complex than your mycorrhizal systems. They walked for nearly an hour, ascending steadily, until reaching a plateau overlooking the entire valley. At its center stood a stone circle surrounding a pool that radiated prismatic energy. 7 ancient trees formed a protective barrier around the site, their massive roots plunging into the glowing water. Oranea awaited them, along with Idra and 2 other council members. The sacred spring, Oranea announced, the source of our essence and the heart of the confluence. Outsiders have never been permitted here, Idra objected, but Oranea silenced her with a gesture. He carries the blood mark. It is his birthright to know. Oranea guided Finn to the pool's edge. Within its depths, crystalline structures pulsed with rhythmic light. What do you see, scholar? Finn stared, his biologist's mind racing. It's like nothing I've encountered. Those formations appear almost intelligent. They are the Arduni, Orenea explained. Not life as you define it, but conscious nonetheless. They arrived when a star fell to Earth millennia ago. Their essence infused this valley and everything within it, including the first Inara. Nessa knelt beside the pool. We are symbiotes, Finn. The Arduni bond with compatible hosts, enhancing our physical form while gaining mobility and protection. Each Inara carries a fragment of the collective within her. That's why you're different, Finn whispered. Your height, longevity, your connection to the plants. It's a symbiotic adaptation. Yes, Orenea confirmed. The binding ritual would connect you to the Arduni collective. Your consciousness would remain, but expanded, joined with something greater. And men? Why aren't there men in your tribe? Finn asked. A shadow crossed Orenea's face. Male physiology typically rejects the symbiosis. Those few who proved compatible in the past transformed more, dramatically. The process became unstable centuries ago. You would be the first male to attempt binding in 7 generations. Idra stepped forward. Tell him the true cost, First Guardian. Tell him what happened to Tarek. Orenea's expression hardened. Tarek chose unwisely. He attempted to exploit his connection. He went mad, Idra countered. His mind fractured when he tried to take more than his share of the confluence. We had to— Enough, Orenea commanded. To Finn, she added, there are risks. The Arduni amplify what exists within the host. Greed becomes consuming avarice. Anger becomes destructive rage. And what would they amplify in me? Finn wondered aloud. Your curiosity, Nessa suggested softly. Your compassion, Idra scoffed. Or his ambition. His desire to make his name through discovery. The accusation stung because it held a kernel of truth. Hadn't he fantasized about the academic recognition these discoveries would bring? The papers he could publish, the lectures he would give? Orenea motioned for Finn to follow her to a small cave entrance near the spring. Inside, illuminated by bioluminescent fungi, stood a crystal stasis chamber. Within it floated what appeared to be a man, or what had once been a man. His form had elongated grotesquely, skin translucent, internal organs visibly transformed. Tarek, Orenea said simply. He sought to control the Arduni rather than join with them. The symbiosis fractured but could not be reversed. Finn recoiled. Is this what awaits me if I accept? Only if your heart holds similar darkness, Orenea replied. The binding amplifies your essence. Choose with wisdom, not fear. Returning to the spring, Finn noticed something he'd overlooked, a second, smaller pool separated from the main one by a narrow stone bridge. This water appeared dormant, its crystals dim. The Arduni are dying, Nessa admitted, following his gaze. Their energy diminishes each generation. Without new compatible hosts and new genetic diversity, the collective weakens. That's why you're considering me, Finn realized. You need outside blood. Some believe so, Nessa acknowledged. Others, like Idra, fear outside influence more than they fear decline. As they descended back toward the village, Finn's enhanced perception revealed more signs of the symbiotic relationship, how the Inara communicated subtly through the network, how the forest responded to their needs, how everything existed in delicate balance. The pharmaceutical company, Finn said suddenly, if they found this place, discovered the Arduni, they would destroy everything attempting to weaponize it. Nessa finished grimly. It has happened before. Why do you think we remain hidden? The last intrusion, a century ago, nearly eradicated us. That evening, as the elixir's effects gradually faded, Finn sat alone at the edge of the village, watching the forest pulse with the last visible remnants of energy. His birthmark still glowed faintly, responding to the confluence. Footsteps approached. Thalia, her usual stoic expression softened slightly. Now you understand our caution, she said, sitting beside him, and why your decision carries such weight. I'm still processing everything, Finn admitted. The biologist in me is fascinated, but the human in me is terrified. As you should be, Thalia replied. Great transformation requires fear. Without it, the choice lacks meaning. She rose to leave, then hesitated. Nessa grows fond of you. Her judgment is usually sound. After Thalia departed, Finn remained watching the night sky through gaps in the canopy. His old life seemed increasingly distant. The academic politics, the funding struggles, the lonely apartment filled with books and specimens. Yet memories surfaced of his sister's family, his aging parents, colleagues who depended on his research. Could he simply vanish from their lives forever? As if summoned by his thoughts, Nessa emerged from the shadows, carrying a small wooden box. Something to help you decide, she said, placing it in his hands. Inside lay a simple bracelet woven from silvery fibers that caught the moonlight. A fragment of the confluence, Nessa explained. Temporary connection. Wear it tonight as you sleep, and you will experience what awaits should you accept the binding. Finn slipped the bracelet over his wrist, directly above his birthmark. The two seemed to recognize each other, energy flowing between them. And what about you, Nessa? He asked quietly. What do you hope I'll choose? She held his gaze for a long moment before answering. I hope you choose with your true heart, whatever that may be. As she walked away, Finn noticed for the first time that her own birthmark, visible on the nape of her neck, bore the same crescent shape as his own. Heartwood choice. The bracelet's vision overwhelmed Finn's dreams, immersing him in the collective consciousness of the Anera. He experienced centuries of memories, births and deaths, celebrations and sorrows, all intertwined with the ancient rhythm of the Arduni. Most profound was the sensation of complete belonging, of boundaries between self and other dissolving into perfect harmony. When he awoke, tears streamed down his face. The feeling of connection lingered like phantom limbs, its absence now a physical ache. You felt it, Nessa said, appearing at his doorway. Her eyes reflected understanding of what he'd experienced. It was... Finn struggled to find words. Like coming home to a place I never knew existed. 3 days remained until the full moon, the deadline for his decision. The council had granted him freedom to wander the valley alone, to contemplate, without influence. He spent hours beside streams that whispered secrets, beneath trees that had witnessed civilizations rise and fall. On the second day, he climbed to the highest ridge overlooking the valley. His satellite phone, previously confiscated, had been returned as a gesture of trust. Signal bars appeared, his first connection to the outside world in weeks. Finn stared at the device. One call could bring rescue teams, researchers, the full weight of human curiosity crushing down upon this fragile sanctuary. Or he could simply call his sister, Marielle, hear her voice one last time before choosing a path that would separate them forever. His finger hovered over the call button when a memory surfaced, not his own, but one shared through the bracelet. The Anera, centuries earlier, fleeing human persecution after their gifts were discovered. Children hunted for experiments. A massacre near a different sacred spring. The phone slipped from his grasp, clattering against stones. Your world still pulls at you, observed Idra, who had followed him discreetly. Her usual hostility had softened into something like pity. I have responsibilities there, Finn admitted. People who care for me. As do we all, when we choose the binding, she replied. Every Anera once stood where you stand, weighing what must be left behind. Even you? Finn asked, surprised by her sudden candor. Idra's gaze grew distant. I was born human. I chose this life during the last great confluence, when the Arduni still burned bright. She gestured toward the distant spring. But their light dims. Your new blood might help or might hasten our end. That is my fear. That night, as the nearly full moon cast silver light across the village, Nessa found Finn sitting beside the community hearth, still deep in thought. If I stay, he asked without preamble, What becomes of us? Of you and me? The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken feelings that had grown during his time among the Inera. The binding would connect us in ways deeper than any human bond, she answered carefully, but it does not dictate the heart's choice. And if I leave? Pain flickered across her features. Then I remain guardian of our histories and you become part of them. A memory of what might have been. Finn reached for her hand, his human fingers intertwining with her longer ones. The contact sent ripples of energy through his birthmark. I've discovered something remarkable here, he said quietly. Not just the Arduni or the confluence, but something I never found in my research or expeditions. Connection that transcends understanding. Yet doubt still holds you, Nessa observed. Not doubt, Finn corrected. Fear of losing my humanity. The binding doesn't replace what you are, she assured him. It expands it like water filling spaces you never knew existed within yourself. As moonrise approached on the final night, Finn made his way to the council tree where Orinea and the others awaited his decision. The entire tribe had gathered, their faces illuminated by floating bioluminescent orbs. His path forward had crystallized not in grand epiphany, but in quiet certainty. Whatever awaited, transcendence or tragedy, he had found his answer in the space between heartbeats, in the silence between words, in the connection he'd glimpsed between worlds. Beyond the valley's edge, the full moon cast its silver light upon the sacred spring as the Inera gathered in solemn ceremony. Finn stood at the stone bridge between the two pools, stripped to the waist, his birthmark pulsing visibly against his skin. Speak your choice, Finn Abernathy, Orinea commanded, her voice resonating through the ancient grove. Finn took a deep breath, looking at the faces surrounding him. Nessa's hopeful gaze, Thalia's stoic assessment, Idra's cautious acceptance, and dozens more who had shifted from strangers to community in mere weeks. I choose to join the Inera, he declared. Not to escape my old life, but to bridge two worlds that have remained separate for too long. Murmurs rippled through the gathering as Orinea approached with a crystalline dagger. The binding requires sacrifice, blood freely given to awaken the dormant pool. Finn extended his arm without hesitation. The blade drew a line across his birthmark, crimson drops falling into the smaller pool. The dormant crystal stirred, illuminating with renewed energy. Enter the confluence, Orinea instructed. Finn stepped into the glowing waters. The sensation began as warmth, then intensified into liquid fire coursing through his veins. He gasped as his consciousness expanded exponentially, touching minds, memories, the very essence of the Arduni and all who had joined with them. For a terrifying moment, his identity began to fragment, memories scattering like leaves in a tempest. Then Nessa's voice anchored him, guiding him through the transformation. Hold to your center, she called. Remember who you are, what you love, why you chose this path. Days later, Finn awakened in a healing chamber, his body altered but stable. He had grown taller, his senses sharpened beyond human limits, but the changes went far deeper. The confluence flowed through him now, connecting him to every living thing in the valley. More remarkable was what he had brought to the Inera. His scientific knowledge, combined with the Arduni consciousness, had revealed patterns of decline, previously unrecognized. The symbiosis was failing not from lack of new blood, but from isolation. The Arduni required broader connection to thrive. The boundary mists can be selectively thinned, Finn explained to the council. Controlled contact with the outside world might save the Arduni rather than destroy them. Over the following months, a careful plan emerged. Selected areas of the valley would become a protected biosphere reserve, with Finn serving as intermediary between the Inera and a small team of trusted conservationists. The Arduni's existence would remain secret, but their environment would gain protection under international law. On a crisp autumn morning, Finn stood at the valley's edge with Nessa beside him. Beyond the thinning mist barrier, his sister Marielle waited, the first outsider invited in generations. Are you certain about this? Nessa asked, entwining her fingers with his. Finn nodded, feeling the confluence pulse between them. Some boundaries must remain, others must fall. The Anera have guarded this sanctuary for millennia, but perhaps our true purpose is to bridge worlds rather than separate them. As they stepped forward together to greet his sister, Finn understood that his transformation had only begun. The path ahead would require wisdom from both his human past and his Anera future. A delicate balance between preservation and change, between honoring ancient ways and forging new connections. The birthmark on his wrist, now a luminous silver, pulsed in rhythm with the heart of the valley, no longer a lost explorer but a found guardian of worlds between worlds,